Buckle up, everybody, because today we're going to be diving deep into like a mental mixtape. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
Curated, from some seriously diverse thinkers.
Yeah.
So we're talking Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Quentin Tarantino, even a bit of Sadhguru.
Wow.
And a cowboy for good measure,
Okay.
Roy Rogers. It's like somebody rated history's most interesting minds, and
Yeah.
we get to just sift through the treasure.
Yeah. What I think is fascinating is that, like, you can unearth some pretty unexpected connections, between these figures. We're talking entrepreneurs, filmmakers, philosophers, and seeing how their ideas kind of intersect can really shake up your own thinking.
Yeah, it's not every day that you get to bounce between insights on like war and innovation.
Right.
And maybe even a little rock and roll wisdom.
Yeah, for sure.
So to kick things off, we've got this really stark statement from Elon Musk. He said, the foundation of war is economics. So that kind of makes you wonder if conflict is less about ideology and more about just stuff.
It definitely challenges that narrative, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What Musk is highlighting there is the often overlooked reality that resources, power, and control are really deeply intertwined with conflict.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you think about it, you look back at Historyland, oil trade routes.
Yeah.
These tangible elements are often at the heart of major wars.
Oh, absolutely. So instead of like just good versus evil, it's more like who gets what. That's a bit unsettling, actually.
Yeah.
Does this mean that peacemaking has to involve more than just diplomacy? Well, like, are we talking about resource distribution on a global scale?
It's a complex issue, but I think that understanding the economic drivers of conflict is definitely key to finding lasting solutions.
Yeah.
It forces us to ask those tough questions about how resources are controlled and distributed and how those imbalances can fuel tensions.
And does this tie into that Roy Rogers quote that you pulled?
Oh, yeah.
The one about you can take the kid out of the man, but you ain't got much left. Is war kind of reducing us to our most basic instincts?
It's a very interesting parallel. Rogers' quote, speaks to something primal within human nature.
Yeah.
And conflict, especially when it comes to survival, often strips away a lot of those social constructs, leaving us with a raw desire for security and resources.
It makes you think about the cost of war, not just in terms of lives lost, but in what it does to our humanity.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got this link now between war and basic economics.
Okay.
Where do we go from here? Is it all doom and gloom?
Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
Let's shift gears a bit and explore how some of these minds approach innovation.
Okay.
Steve Jobs, for example, famously said that the computer is like a bicycle for the mind.
I always loved that quote, but that was way before smartphones and AI and all of that. Does that bicycle analogy even hold up today?
I think it's worth exploring. Jobs was emphasizing how technology can amplify our cognitive abilities.
Right.
Back then, it was all about word processing and spreadsheets, tools that felt revolutionary at the time.
Yeah.
Now we have AI writing poetry and diagnosing diseases.
Right.
The scale is completely different.
So the bicycle has gotten a serious upgrade.
It has.
But has it actually made us, like, better thinkers?
Right.
Or are we just kind of drowning in information?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jobs, he believed that technology could help us tackle complex problems.
Yeah.
But there's a risk, I think, of becoming too reliant on these tools.
Right.
Do we lose something when we outsource critical thinking to algorithms?
Ooh, that's a good point. And maybe that connects to what Yuval Noah Harari was saying about conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
You know how they thrive on simple answers?
Yeah.
Like, is it human nature to just crave simplicity, even if it's at the expense of truth?
It's a fascinating tension.
Yeah.
On the one hand, we need these frameworks to make sense of the world.
Yeah.
But oversimplification can be dangerous. It can lead to misinformation and polarization.
So maybe the real challenge is finding that sweet spot between harnessing the power of technology without sacrificing critical thinking.
Absolutely.
Okay, now I'm really curious about how these minds approach motivation.
Okay.
You mentioned something about Musk and suspending disbelief.
Right. He talked about needing a deliberate suspension of disbelief to stay motivated, especially when tackling something as daunting as AI.
So like ignoring the doubts and just going for it, is that a healthy approach or just reckless?
Well, I think it speaks to a certain level of calculated risk-taking.
Okay.
Musk seems to be saying that sometimes progress requires a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Even when the odds are stacked against you.
But isn't that bordering on delusion?
Yeah.
Where's the line between visionary thinking and just ignoring reality?
It's a fine line, and it certainly won't work for everyone.
Right.
But for those pushing boundaries, a degree of unwavering belief might be essential to overcome what seem to be insurmountable obstacles.
Yeah.
I mean, think of any groundbreaking achievement.
Yeah. Someone had to believe it was possible
Right.
before it became reality.
Okay, so there's a time and a place for a bit of healthy delusion. But doesn't that contradict Gene Simmons's quote about every day above ground being a good day?
Right.
How do you reconcile those two mindsets?
I think it's not about ignoring reality, but choosing where to focus your energy.
Cool.
Simmons's perspective, shaped by his mother's experience in the Holocaust,
Right.
highlights the importance of gratitude.
Yeah.
Even in the face of challenges, there's always something to appreciate.
Yeah.
And that can be incredibly motivating.
So it's not about blind optimism,
Right.
but more about choosing a perspective that fuels your drive.
Yeah.
You find the good, you hold on to it, and you let that push you forward. I like that.
Yeah.
What else did Musk have to say about motivation?
Well,
you mentioned something about scorecards.
Yeah, he said, life is a single-player game. All scorecards are internal. That's a pretty radical notion.
It suggests we define our own success regardless of external validation.
So you're saying it's not about comparing yourself to others, but measuring your progress against your own goals and values.
Exactly.
Isn't that a bit isolating, though?
It could be, but it can also be incredibly liberating.
Okay.
You know, Musk's idea of an internal scorecard encourages you to define success on your own terms.
Yeah.
It's about aligning your actions with what truly matters to you, not what society dictates.
So it's about self-awareness, knowing your own values, and having the guts to say, this is what success looks like for me.
Yeah.
That's a powerful concept.
It is.
Definitely easier said than done.
Absolutely. It requires a certain level of introspection and a willingness to resist societal pressures.
Yeah.
But it can also lead to a deeper sense of fulfillment and purpose.
Okay, my brain is officially buzzing.
Right.
We've gone from the economics of war to the complexities of innovation,
Right.
and now this deep dive into motivation. Before we move on, what stands out to you as the most intriguing connection between these ideas so far?
What's striking is how each of these figures, in their own way, emphasizes the importance of perspective.
Yeah.
Whether it's Musk's, suspension of disbelief,
Right.
Simmons' focus on gratitude, or Jobs' vision of technology as a tool for expansion,
Yeah.
they all highlight how our outlook shapes our reality.
And it seems like being able to shift that perspective to be adaptable and open to new ways of thinking is crucial in a world that's constantly changing.
Absolutely. If we cling to rigid viewpoints, we risk missing out on opportunities for growth and understanding.
Yeah.
It's about embracing intellectual humility and recognizing that there's always more to learn.
Okay, that's a great segue into our next theme. Let's see what these minds have to say about humor clarity and the surprising link between the two.
Let's do it. This is where Tarantino's love for storytelling gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Let's do it. This is where Tarantino's love for storytelling gets really interesting. He once said, humor is a magnifying glass. It seems like he's suggesting that humor can illuminate truth, highlight the absurd, and kind of cut through pretense.
I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
It's like humor can peel back the layers and show us what's really going on beneath the surface.
Exactly. It makes me think about that Sadhguru quote about confidence being a poor substitute for clarity.
Oh, yeah.
You can be completely confident about something that is totally wrong.
Right.
Maybe humor can help us avoid that trap.
That's a really interesting connection.
Yeah.
So instead of blindly charging ahead,
Yeah.
you use humor to question your assumptions,
Right.
to poke fun at yourself, even.
Yeah.
Could that be a path to greater self-awareness?
I think so. Humor often arises from recognizing the incongruity in a situation.
Okay.
The gap between what we expect and what actually is.
Right.
It forces us to confront those inconsistencies, which can be unsettling,
Yeah.
yet also incredibly insightful.
So a well-placed joke can do more than just get a laugh.
Yeah.
It can challenge our thinking and lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
It can.
That's a pretty powerful concept.
It is. And we see this play out in Tarantino's films.
Okay.
He often uses humor to expose hypocrisy, to challenge social norms, and to make audiences confront uncomfortable truths.
And isn't Musk kind of doing the same thing?
Yeah.
But in the tech world,
Uh-huh.
he's always cracking jokes, pushing people's buttons.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
His public persona is infused with wit and sarcasm.
Yeah.
It's often controversial.
Right.
But it also helps him disrupt the status quo and get people thinking differently.
Yeah, so both Tarantino and Musk are using humor as a tool for disruption.
Yeah.
For making us question our assumptions and see things from a fresh perspective.
I think so.
That's a pretty clever strategy, especially in a world that's bombarded with information and spin.
Right. It highlights the importance of not taking ourselves too seriously, of being able to laugh at the absurdity of it all.
Yeah.
Even as we're striving for progress and innovation.
Okay, I'm definitely going to pay more attention to how humor is used both in entertainment and in everyday life. It's clearly more than just a way to lighten the mood. Now, switching gears a bit, you mentioned something about money and power being a big theme in our sources.
Yeah.
What's the most mind-blowing thing you came across?
Well, there's this stark fact that really stood out to me. Fact. Only 8% of money exists as cash. The rest is ones and zeros in a computer.
Whoa.
We're living in a digital financial world.
Yeah.
And most of the money we deal with is essentially just data.
That is kind of freaky when you think about it.
It is.
It makes you wonder who's really in control.
Right.
Does this tie into that Musk quote about governments being corporations with a monopoly on violence?
It's a provocative connection. The digitalization of finance gives governments and corporations unprecedented control over the flow of money.
Right.
Which can be both empowering and dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing debates about cryptocurrency, central bank, digital currencies, all sorts of new financial tools that are reshaping the landscape of power.
So it's not just about who has the most money anymore, but who controls the systems that money flows through.
Yeah.
That raises a lot of questions about accountability and transparency.
It does.
What did Warren Buffett have to say about all this?
Wait.
Didn't he pull a quote from him about capitalism needing a referee?
He did.
Yeah.
And it's a crucial point. Buffett, despite being a staunch capitalist, recognizes the need for regulation to ensure fairness and prevent abuses of power.
Okay.
Even Musk, who's known for pushing boundaries, acknowledges that he obeys almost all laws and regulations. There's a recognition that even in a rapidly changing world, some level of oversight is necessary.
So it's like a constant balancing act, right?
Yeah.
We need innovation and freedom, but we also need safeguards to prevent those forces from becoming destructive.
Yeah.
It's a tension that's playing out in so many areas of society right now.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's a tension that requires careful consideration and ongoing dialogue. There's no easy answer.
Right.
But recognizing the complexity of the issue is a good starting point.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, from the surprisingly deep meaning of humor to the potentially unsettling implications of digital money.
Right.
Before we jump into the final stretch of this mental mixtape, what stands out to you as the most surprising or thought-provoking connection we've made so far?
For me, it's the recurring theme of perspective.
Yeah.
And how it shapes everything from our motivations to our understanding of complex issues.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
It seems like the ability to shift perspectives to be open to new ways of seeing things is a superpower in its own right. It allows us to navigate a world that's constantly evolving and to find creative solutions to seemingly intractable problems.
Exactly. And it's a skill that can be cultivated through conscious effort and a willingness to challenge our own assumptions.
So it's not just about accumulating knowledge, but about developing the mental agility to connect the dots and see the bigger picture.
Precisely. And that brings us to our final theme, where we'll explore some practical advice from Alan Alda on how to communicate complex ideas effectively.
Precisely. And that brings us to our final theme, where we'll explore some practical advice from Alan Alda on how to communicate complex ideas effectively. He suggests, say 3 things, 3 times, 3 different ways.
That sounds more like a communication workout than a quote.
Right.
Is he talking about repetition?
It's about going deeper than just repeating yourself. Think about how we've been exploring these ideas today.
Okay.
We've jumped from war to innovation, from mindset to humor, from digital money to regulation.
Right.
We've tried to see these concepts from different angles to connect seemingly unrelated dots and synthesize a more holistic understanding.
So it's like taking these mental nuggets, turning them over and over, finding new facets each time, not just memorizing, but internalizing the ideas.
Exactly. And that's the key takeaway for you today.
Okay.
As you reflect on what we've discussed, try applying Alda's advice.
Pick a concept that resonated with you.
Yeah.
And explain it in 3 different ways.
Okay.
Maybe write it down. Talk it out with a friend.
Okay.
Even try explaining it to someone completely unfamiliar with the topic.
It's like a challenge to make these ideas your own.
Yeah.
Not just something you heard on a podcast.
Exactly.
Forces you to think critically and find different ways to express complex ideas.
It does. And that active engagement is what transforms information into knowledge.
Right.
It's the difference between passively consuming and actively understanding.
Well, my brain is definitely feeling the burn after this workout.
Yeah.
But before we wrap things up, there's one final quote that I keep coming back to. Musk said, "Luck is the greatest superpower." It's such a simple statement, but it really gets you thinking.
It does, doesn't it? It acknowledges that despite all our planning and effort, there's an element of chance that shapes our lives.
Yeah.
It's a reminder to be open to the unexpected, to embrace the detours, and to recognize that sometimes the greatest opportunities come from those unforeseen twists and turns.
So it's not about just sitting back and hoping for good luck.
Right.
But recognizing that it plays a role and being ready to seize those lucky breaks when they come along.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe that unexpected path will lead you to your own collection of mind-bending insights.
Well, on that note of embracing chance and the unknown, it's time to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this roller coaster ride through the minds of some seriously fascinating thinkers. We hope you walk away with a few new ideas to ponder and maybe even a fresh perspective on the world.
Thank you for